Call this meeting of the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners to order. We're going to start off with prayer and pledge. So Father Ron, if you could get us started, that'd be great.
From the Psalms of King David. Do not fret because of the wicked. Do not envy those who do evil, for they wither quickly like the grass and fade like the green of the fields. If you trust in the Lord and do good, then you will live in the land and be secure. Let us pray. Dear Lord God, our Father, in the sight of the blessed cherubim and seraphim, you established the pillars of the earth and the laws that govern all things. You made man in your image and likeness. Enlighten our intellect so that we may share in your freedom and the authority to rule creation. Help this council to be truly wise in its deliberations and to remember that all authority comes from you, that all good laws mirror your divine law, and that your justice is always merciful. By their faithful effort to cooperate with your providential plan, grant this county peace and its people virtue, the peace and goodness that comes from doing your holy will. We ask this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, God forever and ever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could please rise for the pledge. Right. If the clerk would please call the roll.
Here.
Mrs. Ebel.
Here.
Mr. Zylstra.
Here.
Mr. Bonema.
Here.
Mr. Moss.
Here.
Mrs. Curran.
Here.
Mrs. Rohde.
Here.
Mr. Belknap.
Here.
Mr. Bergman.
Here.
And Mrs. Miedema.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
All right. Wonderful. Quick note, we're going to go past correspondence to public comment. Thought it might be worth mentioning. We did have an agenda update. We had some policies on the agenda for tonight. We're going to push those to planning and policy next week. And with that, I guess we'll go to the clerk and see if we have a list.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have 12 people currently signed up. Number 1 is J. Parnell McCarter, Georgetown Township.
As we quickly move towards the close of the current year and the beginning of the new, it is appropriate to size up the old one and prepare goals for the new. Regarding the old, I want to thank this board for living up to your campaign promises and working to deliver what you had campaigned on in 2022. Your contract with the voters was not empty political rhetoric. Regarding the new, let me propose some goals to consider. First, picking up on something Commissioner Rohde mentioned in a recent board meeting, a new Department of Family Impact that would look to pursue new ways to deliver services and meet needs so as not to be stuck in some old ruts. Second, a county-wide neighborhood watch network by commissioner district with leaders elected by a transparent open ballot system which marked the first century of U.S. elections, along with an accurate qualified voter file or QVF. Such a network could help the county's sheriff office address crime and crisis, help advise the elections division in townships regarding the QVF, and be a conduit of information to help those in need. Those running for a district commissioner would also be encouraged to run for neighborhood watch district leader. This would provide a means to compare election results from a transparent election system with an accurate QVF versus results from the flawed one imposed by federal and state mandates, which includes the ERIC system adding numerous erroneous entries into the QVF. Third, increased cooperation and association of like-minded Michigan constitutional counties to address misguided impositions by higher levels of government. Fourth, forming a special committee of some commissioners and area business leaders who could report county energy status and recommendations. The Biden administration has been pursuing a misguided energy policy characterized by eroding natural gas infrastructure, offlining coal-based energy without adequate offsets, and significant environmental hazards such as associated with solar panel disposal. Fifth, seek ways to decrease the tax burden on taxpayers while decreasing expenses without impairing truly needed services. This should include elimination of wasteful spending of taxpayer money. An example that has come under public scrutiny this year is funding the Momentum Center's Cultural Immersion Program and so-called Anti-Racism Task Force. The former is essentially travel junkets for a privileged few at taxpayers' expense, and the latter is essentially spreading woke falsehoods. Finally, encourage public debate on long-term constitutional direction so that county citizens are informed on the choice of decentralized bottom-up Christian governance, which characterized the original U.S. constitutional model, versus centralized top-down humanistic government, which has progressively replaced it. I have offered to engage in debate the leading county advocates of the latter, but so far none have been willing. The reality is that the former is right legally, morally, and practically, such that the other side prefers to avoid formal public debate. In 2024 and beyond, we need to return to Christ's blessing, which marked the U.S. in its founding.
Thank you.
Number 2 is Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township.
Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township, Chairman Moss. This is directed to agenda items A, B, C, and D. On March 23, 1933, Hitler proposed the enabling law to the Reichstag. This new law gave Hitler the power to rule by decree rather than passing laws through the Ritkrieg and the president. If passed, the law would establish the conditions needed for dictatorial rule. Autocratic leadership and dictatorship are two forms of government that share some similarities, but have some key differences. The main differences between autocratic leadership and dictatorship are: autocratic leadership is characterized by submission to authority, while dictatorship is characterized by suppression of political opponents. In autocratic leadership, supreme power is concentrated in the hands of a single individual whose decisions are not restricted by legal constraints, while in dictatorship, a dictator exercises absolute control. Ottawa Impact members have shown they cannot be trusted with decisions. Case in point, current litigation against Ottawa County Board members as compared to pre-COVID litigation levels, ongoing Open Meetings Act litigation, prayer exclusion litigation, health department litigation, discrimination litigation. John Gibbs has shown that he cannot be trusted. The hiring basis for Jordan Epperson, case in point, he is young and can be bossed around, and involves Ottawa County in additional litigation. With this track record, why would any policy be drafted or adopted that would stop Ottawa County employees that act as a stopgap gatekeeper of good governance from having a role and responsibility in doing so? This administration has an obsession with control. Not only control, but control as power to act unopposed. History has many examples of this toxic mix. Your consolidation of actionable authority should be a red flag warning to any and all residents. This board or administrator should not be given additional authority for simple reason they abuse the current authority they do have.
Thank you.
Number 3 is Donna Mooney, Georgetown Township.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donna Mooney, Georgetown. I didn't come tonight with a scripted speech. Instead, I thought I would talk from my heart. And I wanted to come here to reaffirm my support for the majority of this board, and to also appreciate what you guys are going through. It's really interesting that people want to come in here and talk about dictatorships and authoritarians and everything else while ignoring the fact that currently the United States presidency, the Senate are all under Democrat control. The state of Michigan is pretty much under Democrat control. We are here because we were facing being forced to vaccinate, to mask up for the greater good. That there That there came from Hitler. You want to talk about Hitler? That came from Hitler. Okay. So I don't want to hear about dictatorships and what this was people fighting back against bigger government, forcing upon people, taking away their individual freedoms, driving your EV green cars and every other stupid garbage idea that you have. You know what? I'm so thankful for you guys. These same people were not in here crying over $57 million last year that was allocated in ARPA funds. Now, were they? No, they weren't. They weren't here. I was here. Not only that, but I also want to mention the leaks when you go into closed session, the complete disregard, and we all know who it was. We've seen it all out on social media. When you go into closed session, I don't care if you don't like the process. I don't care if you don't like what's happening. The fact that you've got to come out and do a media tour after closed session shows that you are unprofessional, you are unethical, you are untrustworthy. You will never get my vote for anything. And we all know who that is. But again, I just wanted to be here to thank you guys for what you're doing and all the slings and arrows that you're taking. We will continue to fight on. Regardless of the recall for Lucy, we will continue to fight on. I will be free. I will never be under the thumb of this government, ever. You will never vaccinate me. You will never mask me, and you will never take away my freedom. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you.
Number 4 is Adria Hill, Holland Township.
In an organization the size of Ottawa County, I'm surprised by the proposed policy recommendation given by the administrator to allow him to hire, fire, and discipline employees. The HR department is in place because they have specific skills, knowledge, and experience to help the county follow best practices and labor laws in order to avoid lawsuits and other unpleasant consequences. Similarly, the county has directors in IT, finance, facilities, so that they can rely on their expertise and provide guidance to the county instead of having it all be under control of one person or department. As you look forward to the Policy and Planning Committee where this is going to come up again, I encourage you to ask a lot of questions. Some of them you have asked in other situations, such as what are other counties doing? Muskegon, Allegan, Kent, or other counties of Ottawa County size, do they have the authority on the administrator position, or is it still with the HR department? Why is Administrator Gibbs asking for this power? Is there documented issues with HR? Or is this retaliation for the testimony given by the Director of HR? Given that Administrator Gibbs has been the cause of a discrimination lawsuit, does he have enough knowledge and skills to responsibly carry out the authority? Or should the policy changes be tabled until the lawsuit is settled to at least prevent more chaos in the media? I hope that you will have some robust discussion as you consider these changes. One last thing that I'd like to pose to you is, what would you think if the former administrator Shea or Vandenberg proposed these changes? What will you think in the future if a board or administrator uses this policy to fire some of the people that Gibbs has hired? I know that I would still not support these policies, even if it was an official that I supported even more and trusted even more, because I believe the risks in lawsuits and the implications long-term far outweigh the potential of having this policy enacted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5 is Susan Franklin, Spring Lake. Susan.
Thank you, Chair and Clerk Roebuck. I'm here to say thank you to the Board of Commissioners for going out of your way to pass the Adoption Day resolution last week. And we very much also appreciated you attending. And by the way, I'm here as Circuit Court and Probate Court Administrator. So thank you all for attending, and thank you especially to Vice Chair Rhodey for reading the resolution and sharing her own personal experience with adoption. I know others have also had personal experiences with adoption. It's one of our favorite days in the court, Adoption Day, when we can help bring families together. And we very much appreciated having you there. I'd also like to express my thanks to the clerk's office. They're a big part of what we do every day, and also of what we did on Adoption Day, and also to the sheriff's office. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6 is Joe Spalding, Holland Township.
Howdy, I'm Joe Spalding from Holland Township. So the committee to recall Lucy Ebel has had all their signatures re-verified, and it looks like we're going to have a special election on May 7th. I wanted to talk about the challenges to those petition signatures because it's not super dense. It's just pretty in the weeds discussion at some points. And I think that folks don't realize that Lucy had her team at the cost of tens of thousands of dollars challenged literally every one of the thousands of signatures that we submitted. And those challenges ate up time at the clerk's office. And so I wanted to make a dual apology and a thank you to the clerk's office and their staff for their diligent work, both in the original verification and in the final verification with those nonsense challenges, which included challenging myself. They challenged myself because I signed a petition that I circulated, which as a petition strategist, I'm well aware that is perfectly legal and that's a perfectly valid signature. Any lawyer that got paid to tell you otherwise is ripping you off. When we're looking at the signatures, one of our circulators was actually my debate coach from high school back in the 90s and very early 2000s. One of the things that I thought was interesting about high school debate back then that I didn't think was interesting at the time, but I do now, is that some of the arguments that got tossed back and forth were things like Marxism or feminism or critical race theory. So when those things started propping up in proper political discourse over the last half decade or so, I was fully aware of both sides of those arguments from an academic standpoint, which I think is duly hilarious because you have people like Chris Rufo coming out and Ben Shapiro, who were former debaters who got their asses kicked in college on arguments like CRT because they're bad at debate. I always thought that was just super weird to have that come back into the discourse. And I bring that up because another person in my life that's super important is my buddy Casey Harrigan. He was my debate partner. He and my other friend Ben and I used to take the bus to Path from West Ottawa. We would go to Hope College for advanced math classes. Ben's parents also signed the petition. His parents' signatures, they're good friends of mine. Those were challenged. They're completely valid signatures. My best friend from kindergarten, David, his parents signed the petitions, and those were completely valid. The babysitter I had, if people remember that horrifying sauerkraut incident I talked about before, her and her husband signed the petition and those were valid. I forgive her for the sauerkraut. I don't forgive Lucy for wasting all of our taxpayer time and money. Neither will the voters.
Thank you.
Number 7 is Dina Arner, Holland Township.
Hello, Dina Arner, Holland Township. I rise as one of the more than 2,500 voters in District 2 who legally and legitimately signed the petition to force a recall election in May of Lucy Ebel. The only reason we don't have recall petitions for every single one of you is we just did not have the time. So please don't feel like you dodged the bullet for any reason other than a lack of time. I rise as one of the 8 people on the committee who worked to diligently follow all election laws, to spend time with the clerk's office to make sure that we were following those laws and submitting legitimate petitions. Oh, please don't shake your head, Gretchen. You don't know what we did. You
Please
know
address
what
the
life I
chair,
lived.
ma'am. Please address
Actually,
the chair.
Rule 6-7 says I don't have to address the chair. I can address the board. And if you want to take up part of my 3 minutes, I would be happy to take that time at the end
Thank you.
as makeup. So where was I? Oh, yes, the people who worked diligently to make sure that we were following all election laws and to take this scattershot approach of throwing everything at the wall to see what would stick in an attempt to discredit your constituents tells us everything we need to know about how much you respect your constituents. You apparently only respect your constituents that are willing to come up here and lick your boots. Unfortunately, for all of you, you represent everyone in Ottawa County, not just your bootlickers. And we're going to rise up and we're going to defeat as many of you as we can. And that's called an election. That's called democracy. Please don't pretend that anybody appointed Gretchen Whitmer and Dana Nessel, and that's why you're under their thumb. It's called an election. We voted. It was certified by the state. Apparently, you only believe in election certification, some of you, when it goes your way. That's how a 3-year-old thinks. That's called a temper tantrum. That's not called political discourse. Political discourse is looking at facts and looking at outcomes and looking at properly spending money. Previous boards may not have been perfect in that way, but they certainly were not wasting taxpayer dollars on a holiday weekend, forcing government employees to come in on their holiday weekend to look at frivolous charges leveled against your constituent that if you had competent legal counsel would have told you those were fraud, those were ridiculous charges. And I'm sorry you couldn't find a better lawyer, but you know, that's the way the ball bounces. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Please keep the commentary in the audience to a minimum to respect the speakers. It'd be great.
Number 8 is Elizabeth Brubaker, Holland Township.
I'm here to talk about my confusion about what's going on with Ottawa Food. In 2021, 35% of Ottawa County's K through 12 students were eligible for free or reduced meals. I assume we all know that beginning with the current school year, through a state program, lunches and breakfasts are now free to all students on the days they're at school. However, that 35% statistic gives us some insight into the larger community. If we apply it to the 300,000 Ottawa County residents, we would expect there are 115,000 people in the county who are food insecure. Per an August Forbes piece, food costs have outpaced other rising costs over the 12 months that end with July 2023. This likely means that those who were struggling with food 2 years ago are struggling now even more to meet a basic human need. That to me sounds like a serious issue. As word has gotten out that Ottawa Food has had to pause some of its programs, I'm seeing and hearing that several of you commissioners want no part of the responsibility. Interestingly, it's the same several of you who voted to cut the department's public health education budget, and the same several of you who rejected over $2 million of grants for the county. It's also the same several of you who voted against transferring money from the general fund to the health education line item of the budget. This really confuses me. Why would so many self-proclaimed Christian, child-protecting, transparency-embracing commissioners vote against a program that provides desperately needed food to so many of their constituents? I mean, I think the Gospels are pretty clear on what Jesus would do. I always find that when I'm going through articles and meeting minutes to prepare for my thoughts for public comments, I run into information that I had kind of forgotten. And today I was reminded that in July of this year, it was noted that the Ottawa Contingency Fund was $36,000, down from about $750,000 at the beginning of the year. Is that why you don't want to spend an estimated $121,000 to fund a coordinator for Ottawa Foods and get it back running at full capacity? But today I was also reminded that in January, most of you voted to bring in new legal representation at about $120,000 more a year than the previous legal representation. And in July, you increased that by $4,000 a month. Additionally, a few months back, The same commissioners voted to increase the salary and benefits for the senior executive aide by over $35,000. Just these add-on dollars alone equal over $175,000, well in excess of the money needed to fund an Ottawa food coordinator. So, yes votes for salaries in excess of what was paid previously for the same positions, and no votes for coordinating rescued food getting into the county's most vulnerable. Christian? I don't think so. Protecting of children? Certainly not. Transparent? That's a whole other public comment. Talk is cheap. How you vote to spend our money reflects your morals and values.
Thank you.
Number 9 is Cindy Cornelia, Talmadge Township.
Hi, I'm Cindy Cornelia from Talmadge Township. And I want to voice my support for our strong conservative commissioners, for our administrator, Mr. Gibbs, and for our chair, and for our legal counsel. I realize that you've been under some extreme criticism, and I want to commend you for staying true to what you were elected for. I stand behind the direction that you've taken this county. I support the changes made to the budget and returning to the pre-COVID levels. I support making a change to the health department director. This Adeline Hambley has caused a lot of unneeded drama and false statements dividing the county. She's demonstrated her self-serving behavior, and the agenda will continue if she were left in place. I would expect her to get some type of a severance package. I understand the need for the commissioners to maintain a professional silence of these legal negotiations, but it is true that not all commissioners have done that. And some of them have put stuff out onto the public domain about these negotiations, and that is quite wrong. I truly hope that the settlement isn't as large as what Mr. Bonma did disclose publicly. But it does remind me of some expenditures that were made with the last bunch of commissioners. One example of a large expenditure was that the Board of Commissioners approved bonuses for the Ottawa County employees who had already had their raises and their bonuses. They gave out about 5.2, just under that, for these extra bonuses. There seemed to be a rush to get rid of the funds that were the ARP funds, which were basically the COVID relief funds. Seemed like they might have been trying to spend it as quick as possible. Looking back at the topic of the budget, it seems like the current commissioners bringing the budget back to pre-COVID levels makes a lot of sense, because obviously that almost 2 million of COVID relief was not needed, and it ended up in the pocket of the employees. I'm not sure how that benefited the citizens. But anyway, I do want to thank you for all of your efforts. And Lucy, I'm behind you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 10 is Sheila Detloff, Holland Township.
I'm guessing Commissioner Bonner is probably not too terribly concerned about never getting Donna's vote for many reasons, not the least of which she doesn't even live in your district. I was all prepared yesterday to comment on some of the new shenanigans that you guys have planned for tonight. But then last night, Clerk Roebuck issued a statement with the results of Lucy's challenges to the recall petition and called the recall election for May 7th. So I'd like to take the opportunity to talk about that. It prompted me to FOIA the documents that Lucy submitted with the challenges. And the result was really the best comedic relief I've had since Joe Moss did his last Usain Bolt impression trying to get away from Matt Wiggos. The facts that Lucy and her crack team of handwriting analysts got wrong were pretty spectacular in themselves. The contradictions, sometimes within the same challenge, just added to the fun. This petition sheet must be fraudulent because there are stray marks on it and because there are not stray marks on it. was like Schrodinger's petition. But my favorite was when Lucy used her astute powers of observation to publicly accuse me of fraud, and yet she spelled my name wrong when it was right there in front of her. Seriously, if you're going to accuse me of fraud, the least you can do is spell my name correctly. But the fact that she couldn't just copy a name from a petition into her document tells me that all of her other allegations of fraud are probably suspect too. Anyway, it's a moot point, since we still ended up with well over the number of signatures that we needed. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank Clerk Roebuck for his professionalism and diligence in how he handled everything around the recall. Obviously, there were some decisions he made along the way that we on the recall committee weren't too happy with, but because they were made by Mr. Roebuck, we knew that they were made fairly and impartially. We appreciate him and his staff and the many hours of work they had to put in to see this through to the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 11 is May Kleinexel, Grand Haven Township.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank you, all the commissioners, for your service to the constituents of this county. I am speaking in regards to some policies that the Ottawa County Health Department are running. It's a program called the Flu Granny. You may see signs around the county buildings, and it is a current and active campaign. I noticed the advertisement campaign at the James Street Clinic run by the Ottawa County Health Department. The rudeness of one of the slogans struck a chord with me, and so I did some investigation. In 2019, there was a grant from the Michigan Health Endowment Fund. There is no mention of another grant, and here we are in 2023, still using the campaign. What I found is that this Flu Granny campaign is a campaign for educators. It appears that it is distributed in Ottawa County schools. I'll have you hold up the next one. It gives information about how to recognize flu. First thing is get a flu vaccine. Second thing is fever. No mention of what temperature a fever is. My question is do we like to promote propaganda or do we like to inform people? I'll take the next one. That one. Here is a cartoon that goes along with our flu campaign. I colored it in for you because that's what we send our students home. What does it say? It says, "Oh no, Granny feels ill with a fever. She should stay home today. Temp of 104. This is 2019. Were we expecting to educate people that our temp is 104? If you feel ill, you should stay home from school today. Some of the slogans are very rude. For crying out loud, get your flu vaccine. Ageism is what I felt with this. Here's another one. You're old enough to know better. Don't go to school sick. It just sounds snotty and rude. And here's one of my favorites, good medicine. Again, does the county get funded by pharmaceutical companies to recommend a product when we don't have research that actually says this? And then again, in 2019, learn from Granny. She always covers her mouth. I just don't like it. It's protect Granny propaganda. I would like to finish, I'll take my poem, with a poem. Learn Granny's flu shot. This little kitty went to school. This little kitty had fun. This little kitty got his flu shot.
Thank you.
This kitty did not. So he went sneeze, sneeze, sneeze all the way home. I do not feel that is equal.
Thank you.
Number 12 is Jen Greenlee, Park Township.
Good evening. I too want to thank every one of you for continuing to fight the fight. We know it's a spiritual fight, at most of all. In addition to what May has just shared, I recently heard the webinar that was a combination from Kent and Ottawa counties put together. It was jointly presented. I'm going to give you some of the quotes that they spoke, some of the information, misinformation that continues to go out. And it's like, this stuff has to stop. Why is it representing our county? It says, it is rare that a child dies from COVID-19, but yet it is not rare. So I've added some to this. It is not rare that a child dies from the vaccinations, as in SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. It's also not rare that adults now die from the COVID vaccine, sudden adult death syndromes. There were a number of doctors from both St. Mary's and Spectrum hospitals on this webinar. They blamed COVID on the unvaccinated. They blamed their hospitalizations on the unvaccinated. But yet 80% of the people were vaccinated. How do you figure out that with statistics? Blaming the unvaccinated when it's the fully vaccinated that are more hospitalized. They diagnosed the kids with multi-inflammatory syndrome because of that COVID, not because of the vaccine. And we're seeing a lot more side effects from the vaccine than we did with COVID, where the kids had a 99.9% chance of getting it and having that kind of a survival. That's not my time. And then they're still promoting the wearing of masks. They say if your kids are sick, so have them stay home, stay in their own room. They should wear a mask, and you should wear a mask when you visit them in their room. That's what's on the webinar. Continue taking a vax and the boosters to protect yourself and others. They're still encouraging people to get tested. We already know the PCR test was invalid. So why do any COVID testing? The developer of the PCR test, who was taken out, said it was never to be used the way we ended up using it. PCR has still, the COVID has still not been isolated by itself to be proven in and of itself as an individual disease. The threshold of the PCR test was so high, a lot of things could result in positive. I could go on with a lot of other information, but you get the idea. That information has to be changed from what's on the website. Thanks.
Number 13 is Donovan Gomez, Park Township.
Impromptu speech, meditations from Donovan Gomez. 2,000 years ago to 2,500 years ago, there were two men that existed, Plato and Aristotle. I've basically utilized the Aristotelian method, whereas Plato created his school of academia. And basically, I see some similarities between Plato's school of academia and modern educational institutions referred to as college. So Aristotle would literally go out into the streets and see how things are instead of what they were theoretically perceived to be. You can read up on them, they're good men. But I've seen a lot of hardship, struggle. I don't know anything about these doggone COVID masks or whatever, but I know like when a man is pushed to his brink, the element and nature, it's brutal out there. So yeah. Anyways, last time I came here, I said Arma Vetudiquis Cano, and that means arms and the men I sing from the Aeneid. And I see, therefore, a lack thereof strong men in today's day and age. The attack on masculinity is definitely a thing. And then now these doggone LGBTQ narrative has infiltrated one of the most sacred premises of the pillars of society, church. I don't know why that is, but we all know what happens to Sodom and Gomorrah in the Bible. Let's see, a couple of other my ponderings is that about in the 1800s during the Industrial Revolution, how it relates to modern culture. And I don't know, maybe you guys could probably develop some type of policy on this. I don't know, but these were strong, hardworking people. Oh yeah, one of the things that I'm absolutely terrified of right now is that courthouse that's currently being erected on this county property. For every family in here, that should absolutely terrify us. I just came back from Thanksgiving and already these issues were over the littlest of things. Like, I don't know, like how to take my kids to work, take them to school, like how much time do I get? And as a man, that's absolutely freaking terrifying because I don't even have a relationship. And this is like the current, society we're literally in. So I don't know what needs to happen. I'm gonna cut my time short, but public health, trying to get some people to know about these things. That's why I come to these meetings. Oh yeah, but in the 1800s, those men erected from east to west, 10 miles in a single day track, Pacific Union and Western Union, and then one of them beat the record. But if I was one of those men who literally know doggone well I'm working and trying to do everything to provide for my family, but then worry about this doggone court over here, that's freaking terrifying. So that's all I'm gonna say about that.
Thank you.
Number 14 is Barbara Lee Van Horsen, Grand Haven City.
Good evening. I wasn't going to come tonight, but I'm glad I did because once again, the Momentum Center is being mischaracterized by a very small group of people who are intent on spreading misinformation. And so I thought it would be good to speak to at least address the comments that were made by the first public speaker tonight. It is true that I recently was on a cultural immersion experience. I was in Morocco. It was a trip that I organized on my own without using any of the resources from the Momentum Center. I brought 7 people with me, and we spent time with Hisham, who is our guide, who was raised in a nomadic family for the first 12 years of his life, and has done an amazing job creating connections in his country. It was an amazing experience in a country that is not polarized around issues of religion or race or all of the other things that seem to be driving us apart. I was able, through that organizing, to pay my own way and to raise $2,000 for the Momentum Center. I did that as a fundraiser. So there's no money that's going from the county into any of those activities. That's something I'm doing in order to raise money so that we can continue to serve people in this community who are struggling with mental illness and with addiction and with disabilities. There's a real push for some reason to discredit that work. And I don't understand where it's coming from. We have the statistics, the data, we've been collecting it from day one. We know the impact we're having. I'm moved to tears when I hear our members present their own testimonials and share the fact that they're alive today because they found a place where somebody actually cared about them. These are people who don't necessarily have family members and parents to support and guide them. There are people in this community who are alone, who are struggling, and who need community. And we're providing community. I wish that the people who have these concerns would bring them to me. I wish somebody would ask me about our cultural immersion experiences. I would love to have that conversation and explain exactly what we're doing and why. And I want to invite everybody here. I've sent out invitation letters. Hopefully you've got them to everybody to come to our open house on December 5th in Grand Haven, have a tour of our facility, hear what we're doing, hear about the impact we're having firsthand, instead of listening to these rumors that simply are not true. I hope to see you Monday. It's from 4 to 6 with a short program at 5 o'clock. Good evening.
Thank you.
Those are all the registered public comments we have. Sorry. Commissioner Oster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take a moment to recognize Rachel Sanchez. She's a very deserving award winner of the Chief Deputy of the Year from Michigan Association of Register of Deeds. Rachel's been with us since 2000. She became Register of Deeds in 2014, correct? I think all of us on the board appreciate all of your work, Rachel. And I think all of us at the county appreciate all you've done for the clerk's office and for this whole organization and for the residents of Ottawa County. So thank you again. Appreciate it.
Perfect.
I wasn't going to make this statement, but I will, because we were going to be dealing with some of these things tonight. But I became angry last week when I watched what was happening here at this commission meeting. And I'll tell you why. We are so fortunate to have the employees that we do at Ottawa County. They're dedicated, they're hardworking, and they're caring. Many of whom have worked for us for many years, providing services to our citizens. The way some on this board have treated them with lack of respect and sometimes almost threats is disgusting. As an employee, how do you suppose you might feel after seeing or hearing how outrageous, an outrageously way in which you treated Lisa Urbanski last week? Some of you should be ashamed of yourselves. How do you even look at yourself in the mirror lately? I don't know. And now you want to be able to hire people? Give me a break. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Good evening. My name is Rich Dosman. I'm from Wright Township. I am here to support the current Board of Commissioners because I, like them, was upset with the overreach of government in the past several years on the part of the federal government and especially the state, and that our previous Board of Commissioners of Ottawa County didn't stand up to them and push back for our freedoms the way I wish they would have. Some of us took the challenge and stepped up and ran for the commission seats, and they won. I am not going to lick their boots, and I'm not a bootlicker. I am a supporter, and I'm glad they did it, and I support what you're doing. I also don't believe that the commission is degrading all the employees of the county. I know that there are some that they take issue with, but to hopefully, I'm hoping the commissioner wasn't making a blanket statement that the commission was degrading or demeaning all of the employees of the county. I'm sure that's not the case. Finally, I am very happy to have seen the press release that was put out by the commission. It diffused an awful lot of misinformation that is prominent in the press, and that misinformation, I think, is deceiving a lot of people in the county. And I wish that many who are standing up here and making comments had read that press release and pursued the links that were in it. It tells the other side of the story, because the only side of the story that seems to be coming out is fraught with false statements and misinformation. And it gets frustrating. I know you guys are taking a lot of heat. I pray for you. I support you, and I know you got a tough job, but thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
Kelly Vrujink, Zealand. I want to thank you for moving what you had on the agenda tonight to policy and procedure. I would like to see that every time you're trying to pass something, talk it through as a group. Make sure you're hearing all sides of an argument and that you're not talking over people, that you're actually listening to them. And how you treated Lisa was abhorrent. That meeting was terrible and it was heartbreaking. She has worked here for years.
just like many other employees that have worked here for years, please show some respect when you talk to people, whether you like what they have to say or not.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Okay, moving on. We have approval of the agenda. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and support. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. We have a consent resolution. Could I get a motion to accept the consent resolution, please?
So moved. Oh, second.
Who moved? Thank you, Commissioner Bergman and Commissioner Curran. Any discussion on the consent resolution? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. Okay. Moving on past number 8 and 9, we have number 10 from administration. I'm going to read the suggested motion, which is to go into closed session for the purpose of strategy and negotiation sessions connected with the negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement pursuant to OMA Section 8C.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any discussion before we go to a roll call vote? Okay, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
And the motion passes 2/3.
All right, we're going to go into closed session and discuss the union negotiations. We'll be back. Let's continue. Thank you, everybody. I have a motion to make. A motion we move to ratify the following negotiated contracts. District Court Employees Association, Friend of the Court Employees Association, Juvenile Court Employees Association, the POLC 312, Police Officers Labor Council, Road Patrol and Detectives, POLC 312 Sergeants, and POLC non-312 Sergeants.
So moved.
Their support. Second. All right, we have a motion and support. And I think we will look for a roll call on this.
Sir. Ms. Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Zylstra,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Medema,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
and Mr. Moss.
Yes.
And the motion passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to go to number 11, public comment. Do we have anyone who would like to address the board?
Mr. Chair, at the risk of, I don't want to prolong the meeting, but I did want to just make one brief comment in regards to the work of our office over the past several days. I wanted to publicly thank Commissioner Ebel for her kindness and her respect of our office through this process, which I know has been difficult for her. I think we made decisions that made people on both sides upset. Sometimes that is hard, and this was a hard thing to do, and we recognize that on both sides, the effort put in. And I just want to publicly thank Commissioner Ebel as well as the petitioner for being very respectful of our team. And we don't need to be, thanked extra as part of our job. And, we definitely appreciate the kind words from everybody, including Commissioner Ebel. But it was her right to do what she did. And obviously we had to follow the law. So.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anyone here who would like to address the board? Welcome.
Thanks. So the last couple of months, you guys have been focusing a lot on budget as well as the Hambly hearings. In the meantime, there's been a lot of business items that I think have fallen off from your attention and are potentially going to have some lasting impact if we don't start addressing some of those items. So here's a list of things that I've gone back and seen as not being addressed by the board over the last handful of months. I still have seen nothing about a strategic planning session, which was originally planned for before the budget process and then said to be happening potentially later, but no further update on that. At the beginning of the year, you directed the corporate counsel as well as administrator to come up with a public comment policy for online public comments. Still have not seen anything about that. When you passed the child innocence resolution, you acknowledged that it lacked specifics in how to give direction to employees on what they should or shouldn't be doing based on that resolution. And we still have not seen any policies related to that. There was a transparency resolution promised in your campaign documents or some of your campaign documents. There's nothing on that. In a work session, in a February 28th meeting, Cosby mentioned having a work session or report around CCBHC. I don't recall anything around that. There are some key issues in our area related to housing, groundwater, waste management. None of these items have been addressed in your meetings. And there are the agenda items on the kind of leftover from the Hambly hearing that have still not been able to be addressed because that meeting is still ongoing. So looking forward towards the end of the year, I encourage you to go back, look at what you are asked to do for your constituents, look at the issues at hand for the county and prioritize them over some of the other areas and this infighting that we've seen from you over the last few months. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board?
I would like to
If you
let
please
you,
state your name and
Linda Lampin,
thank you.
and I am actually in a way related to Lucy Ebel. My son, Brian Lampin, is married to Lucy Ebel's daughter, Brittany. And Lucy and I are both grandparents to Hannah, which turns 1 this week. We are both grandmas to that same little granddaughter, which she does not want to share with my husband and I. And Lucy blamed me of something 2 weeks ago on a weekend, accused me of signing a petition to take her out of her position, which I never did. Never knew anything about a petition against Lucy. I don't follow this stuff, okay? I don't follow Lucy at all. I don't care about this stuff, believe it or not. And all of a sudden, I got a text from my son, Brian, accusing me of everything under the sun and accusing me of signing this petition against Lucy. My name, he said, was on it, and I signed my address. Lucy gave him this information, and I said to my son, I never signed a petition at all, never. This was on a Friday evening. By Saturday morning, my son had a copy of the signature, Linda Lampin, and the address. It was not my signature, not my address. And still, I'm being blamed, even by Mr. Ebel right now, out in the hallway, that I signed it, that was my signature and my address. I live in Nautical Nook condominiums. That was not my address, not my address, not my signature, Lucy. I did not sign anything. I sent my son my signature, not even close to my address, and I'm still being blamed. My son, it cost me, my family, does not ever want to see me again. He won't let me see our granddaughter, Lucy. It's not just your granddaughter.
Please
It's ours also.
address the chair.
She should not. She owes me at least an apology for causing havoc in a family. She can't even just call me and apologize for wrongfully accusing me this and causing havoc. You have a person on the board that does that and can't even apologize. I think she should be on the board
You may sit down. Thank you.
like that, person like that.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
I'm so sorry that it's happened. And sometimes there are fraudulent things that happen. I'll leave it at that. But I again want to thank all the commissioners for continuing with the promises that they made, that they've been able to keep despite all the distractions and the deviations from business at hand because of lawsuits and lawfare. But I do want to say they have fought for our freedoms, for our faith and our families, and we need to continue to take precautionary steps so we don't become a police state, for those of you who watched that movie. Relentless persecution of opponents to the party in power is a hallmark of totalitarian countries. With dictates such as, and this is a good review, a reminder, because we're not going back there again. With dictates such as not being able to go to church, not being able to go to school without masks, not being able to participate in sports without vaccinations, not being able to attend school for a while except by Zoom, not being able to get proper health care without PCR tests, not being able to be provided medical information for medical consent or dissent, not being able to practice medical profession if not in compliance to protocols, thus taking away the first do no harm Hippocratic oath that many of us have taken as part of our professions. And then not being able to speak on social media without being censored or suspended. Somebody just got a Christmas ornament saying, you're finally out. And then not being able to shop at businesses of our choice, since many of them were shut down, not being able to work, but stay at home and become dependent on government handouts, not being able to say no to vaccinations being done to babies from day one and scheduled intervals after that, and not being able to say no to the COVID vax to certain employers. These are all signs of an encroaching and usurping government stealing our inalienable rights, liberties, and pursuit of happiness and gainful employment or productivity that we should be able to have to provide for ourselves and our families. A police state dictating what we can and cannot do, or else we would be considered domestic terrorists. Is that what we want? Is that where we're going? Or how more can we protect our piece of America? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? A quick reminder to please state your name and location.
Dan Zimmer, Port Sheldon Township, Chairman Moss and members of the room. As you know, Clerk Justin Roebuck has provided a statement on final certification of recall petition for District 2 Commissioner Lucy Ebel. 35 separate types of challenges were listed that ultimately challenged every signature on every petition sheet. In summary, the total approved signatures exceeds the number required. A recall succeeded. Some aspirations were made. Let's look at a few. Challenge 5. Challenge to fraudulent circulator. Dan Zimmer. My crime as seen by Lucy Ebel. Turning in multiple sheets with every line completed. Turning in sheets with stray marks. Turning in sheets that Lucy deemed that were perfect sheets without any smudging, creases, or other indicators of normal wear and tear. Challenge 7, multiple signatures. When evaluated with regard to confusion and ambiguity with the 60-day reset for circulating and over 1,000 signers that needed to re-sign as a result, seems to be natural occurrence given the circumstances. Challenge 15. Signature or other information is slightly lighter than other text. Wow! Hand pressure or ink pen performance could rationally explain. Voters using their initials. I personally witnessed individuals that did not know cursive. In addition, I emailed Justin Roebuck with subject line FYI, recall cursive, that informed him proactively of signature issue Friday, September 1, 2023 at 6:57 a.m. I also witnessed a quadriplegic with her caregiver and driver of van, the better part of 2 minutes with great difficulty, sign her name. Her caregiver completed the petition lines, but for her signature. I witnessed a spouse complete petition lines, but for the signature for what appeared to be an individual with Parkinson's disease. A change in health situation, complications of medication, or declining health could explain signature anomalies. I will mention Lucy's creativity scenario
Thank you.
is surpassed by her
Thank you.
desperation in
you.
doing so.
Would anyone else like to address the board?
Kendra Wenzel, Hudsonville. After I just heard this woman's testimony that she didn't sign something that
There
was
are
on a-
two Linda Lampins in the voter file, Mr. Chair. And I'd be happy to address any of that with anyone concerned about that after this meeting. Excuse me.
Thanks for the interruption.
Please continue.
Now my time is, I think that we need to make sure, how do we make sure that every one of these signatures, these people actually signed? I think that's important. It's not something that we should just overlook and let be. I think that we need to know that these people actually signed. I was one of the people that worked on those. I saw a page that was the same writing all the way down the page. And I'm wondering, was that passed? Was that page passed? It was the exact same handwriting, the entire sheet, including signatures. So that's a lot. That's 25 or yeah, right there. So 12, yes, 12. So how many of those, don't interrupt me. You're rude.
Please continue.
So anyways, I think that I would like to know I physically saw these pages. I physically saw all the errors. And I would love to know and see every single one of those to see if those were actually thrown out, if those were marked as incorrect, because I think there's a lot of things going behind the scenes with these. And I think it's important. It's very important.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Darlene Dykstra, Georgetown Township, Jennison. I too worked on that team of signatures for hundreds of hours collectively. I witnessed one petitioner that had the same name on two separate sheets, two separate pages of the petition. His particular petitions should have all been disqualified if he's got two people or one person signing twice. And I feel badly for the woman who was mistaken identity, and that's a family issue. And that doesn't need to be brought up here. That needs to be worked out in the family. And I do think that's representative of how careful we need to be so that that kind of thing doesn't happen again. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
My name is David Barnowski and I vote in Port Sheldon Township. I had nothing to do with this recall except to support it vaguely behind the scenes. But the process has gone through. I don't care how many people say I saw this or I saw that. The process has been played out. It's time to accept it. To say I saw something, some one person saw this, that, the other thing, and to try to substitute their judgment for something else. We had a team of impartial observers, professional people follow the procedure. It's time to let it go. It's been decided. Any of all of this other crap is just that. I do give the board credit for finally getting to mediation and for moving this, what I would have called a dismantling of good policy, to your Policy and Planning Commission or a subcommittee. It needs to be looked at. When you have a problem in your hiring process, it does not do you any good to dismantle the hiring process and just make it the whim of your administrator. It gives your administrator freedom to hang himself into another lawsuit, not the freedom to do what he will, because the law doesn't go away just because the policy isn't there to help protect him.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Donna Mooney, Georgetown. One thing that I'd like to address when we're talking about we should just get over it and move on. For the 2020 election, we saw ballot drops at 3 a.m. We've had people that say, there's nothing to see here. That's perfectly normal. Oh, it's already been investigated. No, it hasn't. We've got in Muskegon, 10 to 13,000, I think, ballots is what they found. We've got all kinds of things that have happened during our elections. And for some reason, they only benefit Democrats. They never benefit the other side. But still, all we ever hear is there's nothing to see here. You should just get on and live with it. It's over and done with. I don't want to get on and live with it. I want fair and honest elections. I want paper ballots. I want one-day elections, unless you're disabled or you're in the military. That's what I want, so that I can be sure that my vote counts. Because you know what? What's happened is I don't trust that I have rights. I don't trust that my vote counts. And that's what's happened. So you can say everything you want and that this is, was done. I don't trust you. I don't trust because of what I've seen and the fact that none of it has been resolved. And we've had an attorney general and a secretary of state and a governor who has fought, they've all fought tooth and nail for any kind of investigations. If you have nothing to hide, you hide nothing. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Is there anyone online?
We do have one online public comment, Mr. Chair. Joe Spalding from Holland Township.
Howdy, my name is Joe Spalding. I'm from Holland Township. I find I didn't think I was going to be prouder of the work that we did getting those petition signatures together to recall Lucy. But after hearing about this fiasco where Lucy could have gone in and clarified an address of someone before shutting a child out of their grandmother's lives and didn't, and just chose to clamp up and shut down because of this. I am super happy that we're getting this extremely terrible person out of office. That is horrible. I can't believe that. When it comes to the baseless accusations against any of the petition signatures, I very much would like folks to take a moment, if they get some free time, and check out the film Slay the Dragon. It's on Hulu. You can go to Google or Amazon and watch it. But it's a documentary about a petition in Michigan, the largest petition program that I ever built. We collected well over 400,000 signatures to change how the districts were drawn. We ended legislative gerrymandering in Michigan. And if somebody, I don't know, Donna Mooney, for instance, is super interested in making sure that election goes down exactly her way, she can go out and do the hard work of getting the Constitution of the state of Michigan amended with a petition and have that done. But to complain about it without putting in any work is just lazy, which is very unfortunate to see from an Ottawa Impact Republican affiliated person who is on the Jenison School Board. So to wrap this all up, geez, I knew that Lucy was terrible up there on the bench and she was just a shill and a lackey for you, Joe. I didn't know she was this god-awful of a human being. And I'm even happier that we're getting rid of her now. So everyone else, except for Lucy, have a good night.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
I just,
Reminder, please state your name and location.
Allendale. This is just a reminder and that we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, and there's so much strife in this room. And I'm really not about to cry because of being stressed out. a little overwhelmed feeling, but I just want to ask the Lord to just, I know he's over this. He's a judge. He's merciful and loving. And I just pray for grace for everyone who's been involved in all the things today that have been brought up and the turmoil that's been created. And I know it didn't start in this room. I thank you for this board and everyone on this board and the families of everyone represented here. I love you guys. I pray for all of you. And I love the people of this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I appreciate all the time that all you people are putting in. If we would have had a county commission in the past that did their due diligence, this interim health director who smoozed into a permanent position, I guess, none of this would have happened if the county commissioners would have done their job. That's why they got voted out, because they weren't doing their job. Generally speaking, most of them did. I just thank you guys for being steadfast, taking the flack. If you don't go along with somebody's position and taking money, you're a bad person. But they don't bother to read the strings and the contracts and the other stipulations that go along with grants. It's free money, so just take it. Well, no. That's why a lot of Christian parents don't have their kids in public schools, because we don't want to take the flack, and we don't want to take what the government wants us to swallow all the time. I thank you guys for being faithful, putting in the time. It's almost a volunteer position. I know you get paid some, but you know, if we, and you could all allocate the hours out, but you could probably make more of a salary or wages at McDonald's than you folks do per hour, because those folks can just go and show up and go home. You guys put in hours and hours and hours, as you well know. And I don't think the public thinks that the only meeting that you attend is this general board meeting that happens twice a month. Well, they kind of forget that there's a lot of committee meetings that you folks are attending, like all day today. I just thank you guys for your faithfulness, and God will reward you. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Jim Kuiper, Holland Township. It's been said very eloquently by others tonight, but I also support this board 100% with all of your efforts. I appreciate all the time and energy that's gone into the work that you have to do. And I just want to say thank you and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
I'm Craig Ebel, Holland Township. I just wanted to set the record straight a little bit on the babysitting issue. First of all, that's all on me. My wife had nothing to do with this. When we were reviewing the petitions, I noticed their names. So I said, well, let me give Brian a call and see if that is his parents. I never accused them. I just wondered if indeed that was them. He says, it looks like their signature. I said, okay. Now, as far as helping with the baby, we would love for them to be involved with the grandbaby's life, because we have other grandchildren from my son and more from my daughter. And we're always looking for help because we're always asked to babysit. And we need help in that area. And I want them to have a good relationship with us and with my daughter and son-in-law. We love your son, Brian, very much. He's a great kid. You did a great job raising him.
Please address that.
I would not rather have any other I got time. Son-in-law to him.
Thank you.
Well, let me apologize because she didn't have anything to do with it.
Sir, if you could please either address the chair.
She had nothing to do with it.
Or encourage you to speak afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, I'm done. Okay, thank you.
You can continue if you'd like. You have a minute and a half, but thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Hey, Klein Hexel, Grand Haven Township. Just wanted to show this last thing for you all. It is, remember, get your flu shot. Granny is touching her butt and has a cane in her hand. I like the Ottawa County Health Department, but if we don't use it properly to spread true information and we take grant money to promote propaganda, what is the point? Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Jeff King, Jamestown Township. I just want to say I support Lucy Ebel. She's a wonderful, godly woman, and I would counsel her and the other grandma to get together. I know they're reasonable people. And Mr. Chair, I believe they could get things straightened out if they just talk about it. It was just a complete misunderstanding, and blame it on the devil and press on. Let freedom ring.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the board? All right. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. George Martell, St. Township. And I'm here because I care about this county. I care about how it's run. And I know that you guys care about how it's run. And I just want to again tell you what a great job that you're doing. I apologize for the grief that you get from people that don't get it, but just want to give you all the accolades that I can. You're all doing a great job. Keep it up. I appreciate all you do. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anyone else like to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we will move to 12, additional business, 12A, administrative report. Administrator Gibbs, do you have any updates to share?
Yes, thank you, Chair Moss. I'd like to start out by first letting everybody know, I'm sure you already know anyway, but we have a new Deputy County Administrator, Ben Wetmore, who's seated over here. He spoke at last week's board meeting, which I was out of town and was not able to attend. So very thankful that he jumped in on day 4 on the job and was already stepping in here at the board meeting. So Ben comes to us from the state legislature. He has more than 20 years of experience with nonprofits and local government. He's worked on policy, budgeting, community engagement, things that are very directly applicable. So the work he's doing here, I've already thrown a bunch of stuff his way and he's handling it very well. Ben has his bachelor's from American University, his Juris Doctor from Loyola College of Law. And when Ben's not working, he enjoys spending time with his wife and 8 kids. So welcome, Ben, and appreciate you. There's been talk about county policies, which we're going to be addressing next week at the planning and policy meeting, which I very much look forward to. We've been reviewing and modernizing many different county policies. I'm pretty excited about those changes. I look forward to deliberating those and talking about why I think they're a very good idea for the county. They will bring the county in line with best practices. They will increase efficiency, accountability, reduce hiring time. And I think they're just really a step in the right direction. So I very much look forward to discussing those and with everyone next week. Moving on, there's been some talk about broadband. We are looking at a broadband deal, and there's a couple of things that we're currently discussing with the broadband provider in terms of the specifics of that deal. So we hope to work that out. And I believe that one way or another, we will get some solutions for the folks in our county who do not have broadband access, because we do want to do something for those folks. And we want to do it in a cost-effective way that is of value to Ottawa County taxpayers. We don't want it to be simply a giveaway. And so we are working on making sure that the terms of that come out well for both the taxpayers as well as the folks who would be served by the broadband connectivity. So still working on nailing down the details of that deal. But one way or another, we do want to do something for broadband. Veterans Department is going to be up and running very soon. We are interviewing candidates for that. And I expect that that's going to be off to the races here in the next several weeks. And so I'm excited about what we'll be able to do as we get that up and running and to really have a top-notch veterans operation. Our bargaining group talks are going well. Very pleased with where we've gotten. We started in a very interesting position that was historically unique, but I think we've gotten to a very good place there. So that's exciting news. And that's the bulk of the items I have for you. Thank you, Chair Moss.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay. Any questions for Administrator Gibbs? Go ahead, Commissioner Zylstra.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Just a question on the VA. Are we gonna have that for the end of the year? Or how's that overlap gonna go?
I do anticipate that we'll have a person in place by the end of the year.
That we will?
Yes.
Cool. All right, thank you. And then the second thing is just an update on the MSU extension contract.
I do anticipate that we'll have that moving in the right direction. We're having some discussions with the MSU extension leadership right now, just answering a few questions and things.
We should be able to see that in 2 weeks then.
Yeah, I believe we will. We're still having discussions with them on that. We're having some very good talks and learning some.
Yeah,
good
when
things,
is the deadline for that contract? Is that this year yet, or do we have some time into January, or what's the?
I know that we definitely have until December, so I don't anticipate a time issue there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right. Thank you very much. Seeing that we've reached the end of our agenda, no other questions, and we'll adjourn. Thanks, everyone.